Hello everyone, I am Priyesh Bansal. I'm a senior product manager with AWS Backup, and today I'm going to talk about how you can simplify your backup auditing and compliance management with AWS Backup Audit Manager. So this is our agenda for today. I'm going to give a quick overview of the AWS Backup service, and then I'm going to do a dive deep into backup auditing and compliance management and some of the challenges that customers face. We are going to look at AWS Backup Audit Manager, which is a new capability in the AWS Backup service that helps you with backup auditing and compliance management. And we're also going to do a demo of the feature. AWS Backup is a fully managed service that enables you to centralize and automate data protection across your AWS services, as well as for your hybrid workloads without integration with Amazon Storage Gateway. So AWS Backup offers a cost-effective, policy-based data protection at scale. AWS Backup is also integrated with AWS organizations to allow you to centrally manage your data protection across all your accounts and regions. AWS Backup natively integrates with services across compute, block storage, file-based services, databases, as well as Amazon Storage Gateway to provide you consistent data protection experience across your AWS workloads, as well as workloads running in a hybrid environment. These are the services that we support today, and we are continuously adding new services to our charter. So now let's have a quick look into how AWS Backup works. So these are the services that AWS Backup supports today, and everything in AWS Backup starts with a backup plan. So backup plan is a plan where you define your data protection policies. For example, how often or how frequently you want to take backups of your resources, or how long do you want to retain them. You can also specify lifecycle preferences, such as if you want to transition your backups to a cold storage for cost management, as well as for long-term retention to meet your compliance or regulatory requirements. So once you have defined your desired policies in a backup plan, you can assign your resources to the backup plan using tags. So this also allows you to create backups consistently across your entire application stack set. For example, let's say that you're using EFS, EBS, RDS, as well as FSX for your application and want to have the same consistent backup or data protection policies for all the resources that constitute that application. So to take a backup of such an application, you can just assign your resources with a key value pair and then mention that key value pair as a resource assignment method for your backup plan. So what AWS Backup would do, it will automatically take backups which are tagged with that specific key value pair across all your resource types in an application and then store them. You can also set up notification and logging using CloudTrail and Amazon CloudWatch as well as SNS. So all your backups are securely stored in a construct known as backup vault. You can apply different access policies as well as encrypt it with your KMS keys to secure your backups and add additional layers of security to protect your data. We have also recently introduced AWS Backup Vault Log, which is a new feature in AWS Backup that allows you to apply a retention log on your backups to prevent against malicious attacks as well as uh, accidental actions that may change your backup lifecycle or delete them. You can also automatically create cross account and cross region copies of your backups to retain them for compliance purposes as well as for disaster recovery. And all these capabilities are integrated with AWS organization so that you can use a central managed account to deploy these backup plans or backup policies across all your accounts and regions, as well as monitor them from a central place. You can apply different IAM policies to control access, as well as use AWS Backup Audit Manager for compliance auditing and reporting. Um, we have customers from all different industries as well as sizes, which use AWS Backup for centralized data protection. For example, Worldwide Technology, which is a IT solution provider, use AWS Backup to centralize backup across various services that are used by their customers, and then manage them through a central account and use our security features, both IAM based as well as AWS Backup Vault protection features to secure their backups. And if uh, there is a accidental deletion or there's any operational uh, malfunction, you can recover your backups from AWS Backup. Okay, but our customers tells us that just taking backups is not enough. While backups do help with disaster recovery and business continuity, they want to make sure that their backup policies are meeting with with their service level agreements as well as business goals. For example, let's say that you have a recovery point objective of 24 hours. Now, to make sure that you are going to meet that RPO, you should take your backups at least daily. Additionally, depending on the industry that you might be operating in, you could be subject to additional regulatory requirements. For example, if you are a customer in the healthcare sector, you might be required to follow the HIPAA standard. Or if you are in the finance domain or handling any payments data, you might be required to follow the PCI DSS standard and show evidence of compliance during auditing. Now, auditing could be both internal as well as external and is usually focused on two broad areas. First, what data you are protecting, and second, how you are protecting that data. And you might be required to answer a few or all of these questions. For example, demonstrating your data backup processes, or what is your backup coverage, or whether you are encrypting your backups or not to follow the encryption at rest protocol or requirement that most customers have. When we conducted a survey of our enterprise customers, we were surprised to see that 80% of them are still doing auditing the old fashioned way, where they manually apply these policies and collect evidence during auditing. And it can take up to 60% of their time to collect this evidence in each of these audit cycles. And audit cycles can be very frequent, for example, every quarter or every 6 months to an year, right? And this is not a scalable process, especially if you are doing or running your workloads in cloud. So to simplify this experience, we launched AWS Backup Audit Manager. So AWS Backup Audit Manager is a new feature in the AWS Backup service that allows you to continuously track your backup activity and automatically evaluate the compliance to meet your business continuity goals and regulatory requirements. So there are three key benefits of AWS Backup Audit Manager. First, it helps you gain visibility into your backup environment by continuously tracking your backup activity. Second, you can automatically and continuously audit your backup practices by defining your data protection policies and evaluating whether your backup practices are meeting those requirements or policies or not. And if not, then you can receive notifications and reports to identify those non-compliance activity and take the remediation actions. Third, Backup Audit Manager allows you to generate audit-ready reports that you can present as evidence during your auditing cycles. Now let's have a look at how AWS Backup Audit Manager works. So as I briefly mentioned that everything in AWS Backup starts with a backup plan where you define your data protection policies and preferences. And after that, you assign the resources to that backup plan. Once you do that, you can move to AWS Backup Audit Manager. So there are three steps. First, resource tracking. So AWS Backup Audit Manager automatically tracks any configuration changes, meaning any create, update, or delete operation that you perform on your backup plans or backup vaults, and track that change history uh, and stores it natively within the product for a period of up to 7 years. Now, this is a very common audit requirement where auditors might ask, like, hey, show me how your backup plan or how you were taking your backups 3 months back, right? So what you can do, you can just go and look at this change history, export it, and show it to your auditors, and see how your backup environment has evolved over a period. The second part is auditing. So once you have turned on resource tracking, you can use the pre-built customizable controls provided by AWS Backup Audit Manager and use them to define your data protection policies and automatically evaluate compliance. For example, let's say that you want to make sure that you are taking your backups every 2 days and retaining them for a period of at least 3 months. So Backup Audit Manager provide you control to define that preference and check whether you are whether you have correctly configured your backup plan to follow those data protection policies. And if not, then those would be marked as non-compliant. Similarly, you can track your backup coverage and identify any gaps, meaning identify resources for which you might not have enabled backup. So you can package these customizable controls into a single entity known as frameworks, which also gives you the flexibility of creating a separate set of policies for your different set of environment. For example, you might have a different set of data protection policies for your production environment than, let's say, for your test or your dev environment. Now you can define your controls or policies and pack them into two different frameworks and track the compliance separately. It's also helpful for regulatory purposes. For example, if you have to follow multiple uh, regulatory standards such as, let's say, PCI DSS or SOC 2, you can create different set of controls and add them to uh, purpose-built framework and track your compliance accordingly. And the third part is reporting. So AWS Backup Audit Manager provides out-of-the-box report templates that you can use to generate periodic and on-demand reports and get them automatically delivered to your S3 bucket. Now you can store these reports for as long as you want and then directly export them and present it to your auditors when they ask you the questions that we show or that we saw previously. So these are the controls and reports that are available in AWS Backup Audit Manager. We identified these controls and reports based on the most common data protection requirements that we heard from our customers. Now let's have a look at a demo of AWS Backup Audit Manager. So you can get started by logging into your AWS Management Console and then going to AWS Backup. In the left navigation pane, you can see that we have a new section called Backup Audit Manager. So just click on Frameworks, which will open the framework details page. So how it works section provides you guidance on how to use the product. As you can see that there are three steps. Let's go over each of them. First is turning on resource tracking. So AWS Backup has integrated with AWS Config Service to enable resource tracking for your backup resources. So using the resource tracking feature, you can change any configuration changes happening to your four backup resources called backup vaults, backup plans, recovery point, and backup selection. Uh, you can manage resource tracking using the manage resource tracking section. Here you can see the steps that you need to perform in AWS config to enable the resource tracking. Now, this is just a one-time process. You enable it and then you forget about it. And if you are already using AWS config for your resources, then you can essentially skip this step as well. And it's very straightforward to turn on resource tracking. So just go to settings in AWS config and go to edit. Here you can either turn it for all supported resources or specific resources. I'm going to select AWS resources and then search for my backup resources. Here you can select backup plan, backup selection, backup vault, recovery point, as well as resource AWS config resource compliance. Uh, you can find more details in our documentation or in the step 2 here. Once I've enabled the resource tracking, just come to back to the backup console and check your status. If it shows on, then you can move to the next step. So the second step is creating a framework. So a framework, as I said, like is essentially a group of controls or rules where you define your data protection policies and evaluate your backup practices. So you can give your framework a name and an optional description. There are two ways of creating a framework. First is a default framework where AWS Backup has already defined control scope and parameters as per best practices. And second is a custom framework which gives you the flexibility of defining your own data protection policies. I'm going to choose custom framework today. So here you can see the five pre-built customizable controls that AWS Backup provides. You can choose to include or exclude any of these controls in your framework. Let's look at what these controls are. So the first control, backup resources protected by backup plan, helps you track your backup coverage. For example, let's say that you are using AWS Backup for EBS, EC2, DynamoDB, and FSX. Now you select these resource types as the scope of your control. And once you deploy this control, it will look at all the resources of these specified resource types and check if they are part of a backup plan today or not. And if not, it would flag those resources as non-compliant, indicating to you that, hey, there is currently a coverage gap in your backups, and you perform the remediation action of essentially adding those resources to a backup plan. So as you change your environment, you add and delete and modify resources, this controls automatically detects those changes, evaluates them, and gives you an uh, up-to-date compliance posture update to you. The second control helps you evaluate your backup frequency and retention period. So let's say that you have defined some backup data protection policy best practices, or let's say you have a regulatory requirement which requires you to uh, taking backup every day and then retaining them for a period of 6 months. So now you just specify those parameters, and let's say that you want to follow these practices for your prod environment. So you mention the key value pair. uh, So what this control will do, it will look at all of your backup plans which are specific, which are tagged with this key value pair, and evaluate if they are configured correctly to meet your data protection requirement. And if not, those would be flagged as non-compliant. The third is backup prevent recovery point manual deletion. So AWS Backup provides automatic lifecycle management where after your specified retention period, backups are automatically expired and deleted. However, you can actually go and modify or delete your uh, backups from your backup vault before that expiration period. Now, to make sure that your backup vault access policies are correctly configured to not allow that backup deletion, you can use this control, and you can scope it to either all of your backup vaults or specific backup vaults, and also give up to 5 IAM roles as an exception to this policy. For example, you only want your backup admin role to have this permission. You can specify that as an exception. So if there is any other IAM role which has this permission of deletion, it would mark it as non-compliant. It's also very important control for uh, ransomware protection, where we have seen that if your backup policies are not correctly configured, an attacker can actually go and delete your backups so that you cannot use them for recovery. So using this control, you can continuously check your backup vault protection policies. The fourth control is backup recovery point encrypted. Again, uh, a very um, common security requirement to encrypt all of your data. A lot of times customers do encrypt their backups, but when it comes to providing evidence, they don't know how to show that they are encrypting their backups. So using this control, they can meet both of the requirements. First, to continuously check whether their backups are encrypted or not, and second, provide evidence of that encryption to auditors. The last one is to evaluate your backup recovery point minimum retention. So once you have created a backup, how do you make sure that that no one is changing your retention period? So using this control, you can define the retention period and evaluate whether it is being followed throughout the life cycle of that backup. So as you can see that all these controls are fully customizable. You can define your own parameters and scope them as per your requirements. And once you're satisfied with your controls, go ahead and click on Create Framework. It takes around 5 or 10 minutes to deploy a framework. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going to look at an existing framework. So you can check your deployment status here and then click on the framework name to look at the details. So a summary section provides you a high level overview of your deployed framework. So here, as you can see that my framework is active, deployment has been successful. The compliance status of my framework is non-compliant. There are 2 compliant and 3 non-compliant controls in this framework. So if you scroll down to the control section, you can get more details on what those compliant and non-compliant controls and resources are. So let's look at this control: backup resources protected by backup plan. So if you expand it, you can see that I have a breakdown of my resource coverage by resource type. So here, as you can see that I have a one non-compliant RDS instance, which tells me that, hey, there is a one RDS instance which is not covered by any of my backup plans. So that, which tells me that backups are not enabled for that RDS instance. Similarly, you can see that I have 15 EC2 instances, 23 EBS volumes, 12 DynamoDB databases, and one FSX file system. Now, to check what these resources are, just click on the resource name and it will show you the resource IDs of those non-compliant resources. And now since you have identified the gap in your resource coverage, you can add these resource IDs to a backup plan by tagging them. Similarly, you can look at other controls and details and then click on the control name to identify what those non-compliant resources are. Uh, you can create multiple frameworks. For example, this one is for best practices. Then you can create another framework, let's say for your SOC compliance, and track its compliance status separately from your best practices. So after completing these 2 steps, which is of turning resource tracking and then creating of a framework, You can go to the reports section to generate reports. So click on create report plan. So AWS Backup Audit Manager provides 5 out-of-the-box report templates in 2 categories. One is backup activity and second is compliance reports. So backup activity reports provide you details on your backup jobs, restore jobs, or copy jobs that you have executed in your environment in the past 24 hours. And the compliance reports provide you a compliance summary and a compliance detailed report on your frameworks. So I'm going to select a backup jobs report. So give your report plan a name and an optional description. Here you have 2 file formats, a CSV and JSON. So both of them are universal formats. CSV is very human readable and JSON can be easily consumed by any of your analytics or BI tools if you are using on top of AWS Backup. You can specify the AWS bucket in which you want to, an Amazon S3 bucket in which you want to receive your reports and click on report plan. So once you create a report plan, it automatically generates a new report every 24 hours. So here you can see that I have a new report for each of the past days. And you can also create an on-demand report to get the latest data of the past 24 hours. To check what that report is, just click on the report link and it will take you to the S3 bucket folder where your reports are stored. So these reports are very well organized uh, in a folder hierarchy. So by account, region, and then by date. And you can download these reports to get more details for both operational as well as auditing purposes. So let's look at a simple report. So this is a backup job report where you can see the details such as the report time period, your account, region, backup job ID, what's the status of your backup job, and if it was a failure, then there would be a failure message or reason deployed or present in this column. You can check your resource on, backup plan on, backup rule, and IAM roles, and all the details related to your backup jobs in this report. Similarly, you can create a compliance report to get more details on your compliance status. So here you can specify the back report plan name and description. Um, frame Compliance reports gives you additional flexibility of centrally aggregating your compliance data from multiple regions. So for example, I have a framework uh, in North Virginia region. Let's say that you have a different set of frameworks deployed in a different region. So you can just select a region here and uh, specify the framework and centrally aggregate the compliance data from multiple regions. Similarly, you can specify the file format and the S3 bucket where you want to receive these reports. And once you have all that data, it will similarly generate a new report every day and deliver it to your S3 bucket. Uh, this is a simple resource compliance report where you can see details such as account ID, framework name, framework description, control name, resource ID, and then your compliance status as well as when was the last time the resource was evaluated. So if I look at uh, this row, it's telling me that this is for the backup recovery point encrypted control. Uh, this is the resource ID and this is non-compliant, which tells me that, hey, this recovery point or backup is not currently encrypted. And that's why it's resulting in non-compliance, and you can go and take the corrective action accordingly. So this is how you can use AWS Backup Audit Manager on the console. We also provide you scaling mechanisms and programmatic ways of using Backup Audit Manager. So currently, AWS Backup Audit Manager provides you management on a per account and region basis, but you can also use it for centralized auditing and compliance monitoring. So in the next couple of weeks, we are publishing a blog along with a CloudFormation based managed solution that will allow you to centrally aggregate your reports from multiple accounts and regions into a single account and build Amazon Athena tables as well as quick site dashboards on top of it to get a single pane of glass view of your entire backup auditing and compliance posture. So it's a one-time deployment that you have to do, and this is a high-level architecture. So you deploy this backup observer solution in your accounts and regions from which you want to collect your data, and the backup reporter solution in the central account where you want to aggregate this data. And once you have deployed this CloudFormation solution using stack sets across multiple accounts and regions, it will automatically start aggregating the data and deposit it into your a central S3 bucket, from where it will go to an Athena tables and then finally to QuickSight dashboards. It's an event-based architecture. So as soon as there are newer reports available, your Athena tables and QuickSight dashboards are automatically updated. So here I have some sample QuickSight dashboards that you can generate. So here you can see that it's collecting data from two of my accounts and from four different regions. You can also check your backup job field and completion status, backup jobs by different resource types, and you can create additional dashboards as well on top of these reports. You can drill down into a specific uh, type of jobs. For example, here I'm looking at my backup job dashboard. You can see that trend, how it is going. You can look at the breakdown by resource type, whether they are successfully completed or failed, what was the backup plan with which this report was failed, whether it was an on-demand or an automated job. So you can get all these details and you can then filter down by account IDs or regions or by job status. Similarly, you can get the data on restore jobs or copy jobs. Additionally, you can also create compliance dashboards based on the compliance reports that we just looked. So here you can see the compliance status, whether it's failing or passing, and how it is trending over a period, and then drill down into specific controls and resources. So as I mentioned that this blog we are soon publishing along with a managed CloudFormation solution. So be on the lookout and you can get it from the AWS Backup blogs page. So some of the frequently asked questions that we get from our customers is how can I programmatically use AWS Backup Audit Manager to manage backup auditing and compliance across my organization? So we provide various methods to easily scale AWS Backup Audit Manager, such as CLI, SDKs, APIs, as well as support through CloudFormation templates. So you can use a CloudFormation stack or stack sets to deploy AWS Backup Audit Manager frameworks as well as reports across your entire organization, and then use our managed solution to aggregate the results in a central account. So you have the complete flexibility on how do you want to manage AWS Backup Audit Manager across your accounts and regions. The second question is, how is AWS Backup Audit Manager related to or work with AWS Audit Manager? So as you might know, AWS Audit Manager is a purpose-built service that aggregates the auditing data from multiple AWS services, and AWS Backup Audit Manager controls are one of the sources for AWS Audit Manager. So if you have deployed AWS Backup Audit Manager controls, you can create your frameworks or standards in AWS Audit Manager to automatically aggregate data from those controls along with other AWS services that you're using with AWS Audit Manager. Third is, what is the pricing for AWS Backup Audit Manager? So as with other AWS backup features, AWS Backup Audit Manager is also usage-based pricing. So you only pay when you use the product. There is no upfront or fixed cost of using AWS Backup Audit Manager. We charge you based on the number of evaluations that you generate in a specific month, and the price point is $1.25 per thousand evaluations that you generate. For more details as well as pricing examples, please go and check our AWS Backup pricing page. So just to wrap up the presentation with a few key takeaways, we saw that AWS Backup enables you to centralize and automate data protection across AWS services as well as your hybrid workloads. You can use AWS Backup Audit Manager frameworks to define and continuously audit the compliance of your data protection policies. And then you can use AWS Backup Audit Manager reports to automatically generate periodic and on-demand reports that you can use both for monitoring as well as auditing purposes. So to further explore the feature, I would encourage you to check out our blogs, a demo, as well as documentation. And to get started with AWS Backup Audit Manager, please visit our uh, AWS Backups product page. Thank you.